Why do you keep buying things to impress people you don't even like? Invest in good friends. Just as an aside, take out time to have dinner with your friends. Your money is something that should constantly be flowing in your life. It's not something that you only hold on to. It's something that you freely give away to those who might need it more. Welcome to Adulting with Joyce Pring. Watch the full video of this episode on my channel, www.youtube.com/JoycePringTV. And if you want to level up your adulting game, check out joycepring.com/collections for my digital products and course. What's up, you guys, and welcome to another episode of Adulting with Joyce Pring. It's a solo one, which we haven't done in such a long time. So today, we will be tackling two big money topics. The first one is avoiding lifestyle creep, and the second one is making smart moves in terms of investment. I'll be sharing with you my own experience of saving, budgeting, and investing. And of course, a huge shout out to Sierra Valley Gardens by RLC Residences for partnering with me on this episode. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's talk about first what lifestyle creep is. Lifestyle creep, as I've recently explained to a friend of mine, is kapag nag-uumpisa ng lumaki yung pera mo. Halimbawa, let's say, yung unang sweldo mo, 10,000 pesos. So, syempre yung budget mo within 10,000 lang or 7,000 lang yung gagastusin mo, yung 3,000 doon, itatabi mo na, isa-save mo na. And then, kapag naging 15,000 yung sweldo mo, gagawin mo na, okay, pwede na akong 10,000 gumastos every month. So, basically, lifestyle creep is slowly but surely growing your lifestyle to match the money that you're making. So much so that hindi ka na nakakapag-save. Kasi habang lumalaki yung pera mo, lumalaki din yung gastos mo. So that is my understanding of lifestyle creep. Again, I'm not a financial expert of any sort, but I would like to think that I'm very responsible with my money and how I make my budget, my savings, and my investments. So I wanted to share that with you. And I feel like that's something that people need to warn you about, especially if you're just working, nakakaumpisa mo pa lang. You will really sometimes not notice that, oh, dumadami na bigla yung mga online shopping ko or dumadami na yung kain ko sa labas and going to restaurants and things like that. So I wanted to share that with you. And how I managed my money when I was single and living alone was really I tried to be as smart as possible, but when I started noticing na I was having lifestyle creep, dun na ako naging mas serious about making wiser choices. So, before, hindi ako mahilig talaga kumain sa labas. I like to cook even though I'm not a good cook. I just eat whatever at home. And when I started earning more money, dun na ako naging sobrang magastos. As in, everyday halos na ginawa ng Diyos, ako ay bumibili ng pagkain sa labas, kumakain sa labas. I would go out with my friends all the time. And so I saw that that was taking a toll on my money. And what I did instead was this. So once I got my money, I set aside na kaagad yung pera ko for saving and for investing before I paid for my bills or I went out and celebrated or hung out with my friends. So what does that look like? If I get my money, when I get my sweldo or when a check comes in because I'm freelance, what I would do is I would set aside 30% na kaagad. I will put that in a savings account that I do not touch. I put the 10% in my tithing and then I put another 10% for, let's say, for my investments. Let's say 15% for my investments. Actually, meron akong computation ko dito. Wait lang. Financial goals ko. Ayan, okay. So, what I do, I still try to do right now is 10% goes to my tithing, 12% I set aside already for my tax, 20% I set aside for my savings, 10% is my fun money, which is money that I can use for my travels and things like that, shopping. And then 15% goes into my investment money or money that I try to save up so that I could reinvest it into something else. Now, what that does for me is very purposeful yung money ko. That when it comes in, I know exactly where it's going into already. Hindi yung gagastusin ko lahat. Tapos tsaka na ako magsasave kung ano yung natira. So I know that's not something that a lot of people get to do, especially in that percentage, but that could be something that you apply for yourself, even if it's, let's say, 5% of the income that you're getting, even as small as 500 pesos per month. If you set that aside, it's still something at the end of the year. So you can maybe apply that to yourself as well. Now, the challenge that I faced with that I feel like a lot of young people don't really realize is I had this false confidence that work will always continuously grow. Like, lagi naman lalaki yung pera ko, di ba? Lagi naman akong may work. But what I've realized is you have to really save up for, difficult times. And I'm very grateful that naging ganun yung perspective ko early on, because when the pandemic happened, even though we didn't have work, especially because we were freelance, even though we didn't have work for a couple of months, we were able to really get by, still live comfortably, because we had quite a bit of money saved up already for the rainy day. So that's why I feel like it's so important to prioritize setting aside money for your savings, setting aside money for your investments, so that hindi ka nangangarag kapag petsa de peligro na, or when you all of a sudden have to deal with difficult situations and circumstances that you might get yourself into. Okay, I love this question. Are there any specific purchases you were tempted to make but decided to avoid to stick to your financial goals? Yes, and many. I used to really love watches, as in, I wanted to start a watch collection because I got my first, ano bang tawag doon, luxury watch? Basta I bought my first luxury watch as kind of like an investment piece when I turned 23 or 22. And after nun, parang ako, wow, ang sarap pala ng feeling na nakabili ka ng something really nice for yourself. Ang sarap na binabati siya when people see it. So I understood why people were in love with luxury goods, because it's instant gratification. It's nice on you. It looks nice when you dress up. People notice it on you and things like that. But I decided against buying luxury goods because I realized that, one, my personality type is not really yung masinop sa gamit. So what I did instead is I started investing in properties kasi, and other businesses, kasi parang for me, that's easier investment for me than purchasing items that I'm not very good at handling or taking care of. Kasi hindi naman talaga ako kikay na tao, which, it could be good for you, but really not for me. Ayan. Oh, that's a good question. How did you handle pressures to upgrade, whether it's a nicer apartment, car, based on what your peers or society expected of you? You know what? I read something that said, why do you keep buying things to impress people you don't even like? You keep buying things that you don't need to impress people that you don't even like. Now, I have never been the type to buy things to impress people that I don't even like. But because of the nature of my work, I sometimes thought to myself, maybe I should get all those branded items. Or especially when I was very active in showbiz, I was on TV every day. I would hear a lot of people tell me, "Oh, you should buy this branded pair of shoes or bag or something like that. Kasi may ganito din si person A or person B." And I think the thing that really stopped me from that pressure, like allowing that pressure to be placed upon me, is, one, really wanting to be an outlier. Like, I never was afraid of being the weird kid. I'm okay with being the person that sticks out like a sore thumb. Kasi weird naman itong taong to. Parang sobrang plain niya lang manamit, or plain lang siya mag-set up ng buhay niya, diba? I didn't drive a super fancy car or anything like that. So that's the first thing. Like, don't be afraid to be the weird person that doesn't conform to the idea of what a successful person looks like. Two, I had to define for myself, what does success look like? For me, success is being able to retire early, to freely enjoy my time. If I wanted to travel, if I wanted to take a break, I don't have to work because I've worked hard enough. I've saved up enough. That's what success looks like to me. And the third thing is, I really surrounded myself with people who were very successful in their own fields, had really good investments that I saw them being able to reap, and who I knew were better business men and women who were better at investments. Like, just being surrounded by those people, it really changed me. Like, for example, I was supposed to buy a really nice watch, and it was a very expensive watch. So much so that you could buy a car with that amount. And my friend was like, why are you gonna buy a watch and then pay for a monthly in your car? So just buy the car, full stop. Kasi paglabas niyan sa casa, bababa na kaagad yung value niyan. And then think about the watch. If you really want it, you can buy 3 of those. Like, the rule is if you can afford 3 of those, like a luxury thing, right? If you can afford 3 iPhones, then sure, buy one. If you can afford 3 pairs of those sneakers, I mean the amount. If you can afford the amount 3 times, then you can probably afford it. Like, it won't hurt you. So my friend told me that, and I was like, oh nga no, bakit ko gagawin yun? So what I did, instead of buying that expensive watch, is I bought a van for myself because I was constantly traveling and working. And that kind of perspective only happened because I was surrounded by people who are much wiser than me. So that would be my advice for you. Oh, what were some early investments that you didn't realize would benefit you long term, and how did you feel about taking that step? Early investments, I knew that investing in myself, I know it sounds cliche, but I knew that investing in myself would really pay off. What does that look like? Taking swimming lessons. I've never taken swimming lessons my entire life until I turned 22. That was my first ever swimming lesson. Shout out to Coach Al Gonzalez, who was my coach. Studying abroad, I did that summer course in Oxford, stayed there, lived there, learned there, absolutely loved it. I traveled a lot. I think those kinds of things were investments in myself, which I'm now reaping the benefits of because I'm healthier, which is so important, right? I also feel like I know so much. I've learned so much because I've traveled so much. So that would be the first thing. Like, buying books for me is an investment. Spending time going to retreats, whether that was a religious retreat or a writing retreat, that for me is an investment in myself, which is very important. The second thing that I did is investing in items that would help my work. So expensive, nice cameras, I still use now. Buy it nice or buy it twice. You buy something that's really nice, you don't have to buy it twice. So I bought nice cameras. I bought the microphone that we're using now is the same microphone that I had 4 years ago. So just those things, I feel like are very good investments. So that might look different for you. If you are someone who works in IT, if you work in corporate, maybe buying nice suits or something like that, something related to your work could be very, very helpful. So for me, that was that. And third and finally, property. I bought my first property when I was 23, and I'm so very proud of that because I know that a lot of people don't get to do that. I know that I'm very, very blessed with the line of work and the opportunities that I have. And I'm so, so blessed because, as I mentioned earlier, I was surrounded by people who were giving me good advice. They were like, don't buy the watch, don't buy the bag, instead invest in property. And I did. And it really, I reaped the benefits because I was able to buy a property that I was able to then flip and sell a few years ago, which has now helped in funding the houses that we have. So those are just some of the investments that I have. Also, invest in good friends. Just as an aside, take out time to have dinner with your friends, which is something that I constantly do no matter how busy I am. So I'm still friends now with my best friend Faith, who I've been best friends with since I was 9. She has to come on the show para ma-meet niyo siya dahil lagi ko siya nire-reference. But that's an aside investment, a bonus investment that I'm gonna give for you guys. Ever feel like your income's going up but your lifestyle is creeping up right alongside it? Or maybe you're wondering how to invest in a way that actually adds value to your life, not just your wallet. Well, what if I told you there's a way to make a smart move that gives you both? A place to live that supports your lifestyle while helping you stay financially savvy. That's exactly what Sierra Valley Gardens by RLC Residences is all about. Located in Cainta, Rizal, right next to all the city conveniences, it's a place where modern living meets smart investing. Sierra Valley Gardens offers studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, and each unit is smart home ready, giving you cool features like a smart door lock you can unlock with your fingerprint or phone, and smart lights and switches you can control remotely. Plus, the amenities are designed with wellness and sustainability in mind. There's a fitness center, a wellness area, and even a hydroponics farm on the roof deck. So if you're looking for an investment that's all about better living, consider Sierra Valley Gardens by RLC Residences your smart move in the East. How did you balance investing in yourself, education skills with more traditional investments, stocks, retirement when you were just starting out? Okay, so the first thing that I really did was to buy insurance. My first insurance that I bought, I think I was 21. I know it sounds crazy, right? But my first insurance that I bought was 21. It's life insurance. I was actually able to, after nung nag-mature na siya, withdraw ko siya, tas reinvest ko siya ulit. And I feel like that was a really good investment. That's the first thing that I did. The second thing that I could afford at that time was really like self-investment. So for me, to be able to balance those things, right? Like investing in yourself and in your experiences, kumbaga, your travels, education, skills with traditional investments, siguro you have to follow what you're capable of during that time. So, if you're capable of only, ang kaya lang ng budget mo talaga is to set aside savings first and buy a few books so that you can have more skills, so that you can grow your money, then that's the investment, the balance of investment that you can do. For me, at the start, ganun yung ginawa ko. I could afford insurance, like small insurance lang that I was paying for, that I paid for 5 years. Tapos nung nag-mature na siya, I had a bit of extra money. I pulled it out and then I reinvested that into either stocks or into my property, ganyan. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm very good with stocks. Like the only way that I've ever invested in stocks is through all those mga apps. But I really am such a huge fan of property investment because it has never failed me. Like personally, property investment has never failed me, especially if you find ones that are in developing areas and has a really good developer. So, yun yung lagi kong sinasabi when people come to me, especially friends come to me like, I don't know where to place my money. I always ask them, what is your capacity right now of how much money you're spending? That should be the first thing. Like, the last thing that you want is investing in something that's so expensive because that's the traditional way to go about this. Pero hindi mo naman pala afford pa. So, go with what you're capable of now and then balance the risk and the benefits and then move on from there. So, una, sa akin, ganun yun eh. Experiences pa lang afford ko, books pa lang afford ko, growing my skills pa lang yung afford ko. And then when I could, I invested in properties already. So that would be the right balance, I feel like, for a lot of young people. If someone is single and living alone, what types of investments would you recommend starting with and why? Okay, so I am a huge fan of investing in real estate. So if you are right now single, you have money, you have extra, the first thing that I would think about is like if there are pre-selling condos around you or in areas that you think are really good, they're developing, you scan the area, i-visit mo siya, mag-side trip ka, diba? Tignan mo kung maganda talaga siya. You don't even have to do it with an agent. Just go there, like see if you can drive there and it's not such a hassle for you, then maybe it's something that you can look into. Invest in those mga pre-selling condos or even in condos that are ready for occupancy. Go and check that out. One wise thing that a friend of mine told me was, don't buy property that you're not willing to live in, because if you're just buying property, paparent ko lang naman yan. What happens if walang mag-rent? So that was such a wise wise advice kasi I was supposed to buy a particular property and ended up not buying that because when he asked me that question, I was like, oh, nga no, I would never live in this area. So sabi niya, then why do you think anybody would live in that area? So you have to ask yourself those questions. So if you're single, that first investment of a home is so important. You have to ask those important questions to yourself as well. But another investment that you can make is in your transportation. Like, is your job requiring you a lot of travel? For me, it did. So I got a car, like I bought a car. That's one of the first investments that I did. Other home related stuff that you could invest in really is a place that you could rent out. Like if, for example, you already have a place that, a thing that Wancho and I did that a lot of people got confused by is we bought a property first for renting before we started building our house. Now, the reason why we did that is because we bought this house so that it could self-liquidate. So yun yung una namin inisip. Pag binili na namin tong bahay na to, magsa-self-liquidate na siya, meaning it will pay for itself already while somebody is renting that house. And true enough, that's what's happened right now. So instead of thinking, I'll look for a house for me first, hindi yun yung inisip namin. Kasi kaya naman namin mas mura mag-rent kesa magpatayo ng bahay. So inisip muna namin yung property investments namin. Now, that's something also that you can think about, right? Like, if you invest your money in a place that, maybe in the future you're willing to live in, it's a really good investment. But right now, you want to save more money and you want to live with roommates or you're living with your parents, diba? You're single pa naman, wala ka pa naman sariling family, then you can invest in something that will self-liquidate, that you can actually eventually either sell or live in. I hope that makes sense. I feel like that could be kind of complicated for a lot of young people who are listening right now, but I don't think enough people are talking about that. Like, always makikita natin yung mga people of influence would talk about like, nagpatayo ako ng bahay, kaagad, di ba? Grand thing na kaagad, grand bahay na kaagad. Like, ang ganda ng bahay mo. Para sa akin, gagawin ko lang yun kapag I have enough investments that I know if push comes to shove, my investments can pay for the house. So for me, that's something that we really focused on. We made sure that we had enough liquid, we had enough investments that could cover for the house, whatever happens. How did you reward yourself without feeling guilty or worried about your long-term goals and future plans? As I mentioned earlier, I set aside my money for savings and investment first. That is the best way to do it. I don't know about you guys, but I find budgeting so hard. It's so hard for me to constantly compute. Like, my husband is very good at that. He's very good at the Excel sheets and putting all of the money that's coming in and all of the money that's coming out. I'm not like that. So what works for me is on the get-go, 20% bam, savings. 10% bam, tithing. 10% investment money. Tapos hinihintay ko na lang yun na mabuo yung investment ko, yung savings ko, yung fund money ko, yung emergency funds ko. I focus on that first, and then whatever is left, that's how I reward myself. So that I know I'm not rewarding myself when I still need to make savings. Like, wala pa akong savings, wala pa akong money for investment, pero bilhin na ako ng bilhin ng mga deserve ko to items. Of course, it's good to enjoy the fruits of your labor, but at the same time, you have to be more mindful of these things because, as I mentioned earlier, we don't know, right? Like, we don't know what's in store. So it's always so important to be able to kind of err on the side of safety by setting aside your savings, your investment, your fund, your emergency funds, money first before rewarding yourself. What financial lessons did you learn while managing your income alone that you still use now? Ooh, that's a good one. So apart from the ones that I've already mentioned, siguro, one thing that I would like to share with you guys is so the first that I've mentioned already is the 3 times rule. I look at an item that I want to buy, whether it's a camera, a pair of shoes, whatever it is. And before I make that big purchase, I ask myself, do I have the capacity to buy 3 of this? Like, if I bought 3 of this item, will my bank account be wiped out? If the answer is yes, then I probably can't afford that item. But if the answer is no, then I can afford that item because even if I buy 3 of those, it won't affect my bank account, right? So that has been a really good gauge for me with regards to the items that I'll be buying. So that's the first one. The second thing is I don't have bad debt. So I learned something na parang meron daw 2 kinds of debt. Merong debt that is bad and merong good debt. So good debt is like your mortgage. You have an investment, you have a home, you have something to show up for the debt that you have. You can always sell it if you'd like to. It's earning money, it's growing in value. That's good debt. Bad debt is, for example, you always max your credit card. For me, what I try to avoid as much as possible is having any bad debt. So my rule is with my credit card, if I can't pay fully my credit card every month, then there's something wrong. Like I'm doing something wrong with my finances. I have to be able to pay that. Kasi a friend of mine who's also a businessman, he told me na I don't use credit cards. Like if I can't afford it with my cash, I probably can't afford it. Period. So when he said that, it really struck me. So nagkaroon ako ng rule tuloy na, okay, I'm only gonna use my credit card to buy this thing if I know that I'll be able to fully pay my credit card at the end of the day. So that's still something that we apply now in our family. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way when I was in my 20s kasi medyo gumastos ako at some point. Like I feel like that's a normal thing that people go through, right? Especially when you start from nothing and then you have all these other things. Reward yourself, pero I learned my lesson. So it's something that we apply now. And finally, we try to live as simply and as fully as possible while making sure that we understand what truly matters. For me and for my husband, success to us is not fancy things. Of course, we buy things that are expensive when they need to be expensive, like tech, good quality shoes, all those things. Pero yung out of luxury lang, we try to stay away from that. We try to live as simply as possible and we try to define success as what it should be, which is we invest in our health. We invest in our family's future. We invest in time with our children. We invest in travel. And it simplifies life for us, So those are things that I learned when I was single. Some of those things I'm sure Wancho also learned when he was single that we try to amalgamate and put together now that we have a family. What's your advice for those who feel they deserve to spend more as they make more? With more power comes more responsibility. You know what? You're not completely wrong. You do deserve to enjoy the fruits of your labor. That is a good thing to be able to enjoy traveling, good food, good items. But my thing is you have to know your priorities first. And for me, knowing that you have savings. So what is the rule? Emergency funds. What are some of the things that you can think about now that we're talking about deserve mo to, diba? I-check off mo muna sa utak mo. Okay, do you have an emergency fund? An emergency fund is your monthly expenses saved up 3 to 6 months. So let's say ang monthly expenses mo ay 10,000 pesos. Dapat meron kang at least 30 to 60,000 pesos saved up just for emergency funds. Andun lang yun. So if anything happens, you get sick, whatever happens, meron ka nung emergency fund na yun. That's the first one. The second one is your fun money. Fun money is basically the money that you set aside to go shopping, pag meron kang nakitang sale, diba? Meron kang nakatabi doon, gusto mong kumain sa labas, meron kang nakatabi doon, gusto mong bumili ng gift. It's just your fun money. It doesn't have to have a purpose, but if it's fun, if it's something that you like, if it's something that you want, you can go buy it as long as you have fund in your fun money. Third, having your retirement or savings account. This is the money that you have to start saving when you're in your 20s. No matter how small it is, imagine if you're saving up 2,000 pesos once a month for 12 months, that goes into 10 years. That's a lot of money already. That means you will have started your retirement money 40 years from when most people, or 30 years from when most people are just starting theirs. So that's your retirement fund. Fourth is your investment money. Your investment money is money that you save up to eventually reinvest in the future, whether that's property, diba? Rental properties, stocks, investments, whatever that may look like, save up for those things already and set those things aside. And finally, yung fifth thing for me is tithing, or money that I give to charity, the 10% that I give to, for sure, my church or to the other charities that I work with. Having that will remind you that your money is something that should constantly be flowing in your life. It's not something that you only hold on to. It's something that you freely give away to those who might need it more. And that kind of rule in my life has blessed me so much because it reminds me na my money is not just for me. My money is for other people who need it, for other people who I can help, for other people who I can love, and that God is blessing me with the money that we're earning right now because it's a channel of blessings for other people too. So it's good to have investment. It's good to have retirement. It's good to have fun. It's good to have, all these other things. But if you don't also give to others, I feel like that you'd be missing out on such a huge opportunity for your growth as a person. So once you do all of that, I think you're fine. Like you'd be able to buy whatever you want freely, to deserve to spend as much money as you want as you make more money kasi alam mo yung priorities mo. At the end of the day, these boundaries are set to protect you. So you don't necessarily have to constantly restrict yourself. You just have to know what your priorities are. All right, you guys, that's it for this episode of the podcast. Sana marami kayong natutunan about finances, investing, saving up money, budgeting. I hope you picked up some very insightful tips on how to keep lifestyle creep at bay and make a smart move in investing. I hope that you guys like this because if you did, you can send in the comments kung ano pa yung mga questions nyo about finances. Again, I am no expert, but I would like to think that at 31, we have been making some smart choices in our lives and hopefully they're helpful to you guys. We hope that you enjoyed this episode and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you once again to Sierra Valley Gardens by RLC Residences for partnering with me on this episode. We'll see you guys next time. Paalam. That's it for this episode of Adulting with Joyce Pring. If you liked this podcast, please don't forget to use the hashtag Adulting with Joyce Pring and also check out www.joycepring.com for the show notes and tag me on social media with at Joyce Pring. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Paalam!